Are you a woman of faith in business who is aspiring to start a podcast, or maybe you have a podcast and you want to rebrand or relaunch your podcast? I have good news for you. Announcing and introducing She Elevates Media. She Elevates Media is a collective and a collaboration project and your marketing team to launch your podcast. We will assist you from beginning to end in launching your God-given message in the marketplace in the form of a podcast. We help you plan the podcast, we help you publish and produce the podcast, and we also help you promote the podcast. So this is something that is new to the marketplace, and I am one of the individuals as a part of the collective of your marketing team. So I encourage you to go to sheelevatesmedia.com to learn more about how we can partner with you to launch your podcast, to rebrand your podcast, or to relaunch your podcast as we walk you through the path to profiting in your podcast, where we plan, we publish, we produce, and we promote your podcast. Learn more at sheelevatesmedia.com. Welcome to the Women Faith Plus Business Podcast. I'm your host, Nadine Mullings. I'm an author, speaker, and podcast host, and I believe in the importance of women of faith stepping up, shining in their lane, and sharing their God-given message so they can have the impact, income, and influence they were born to make. Join me this season to discover how women of faith in business are using podcasts as their platform to share their mission-driven message. And be sure to join the Women Faith Plus Business community by going to NadineMullings.com/community. That's NadineMullings.com/community. See you in the powerful community of women of faith in business, and enjoy this episode of the Women Faith Plus Business Podcast. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of the Women Faith Plus Business Podcast. I'm always excited when I get to speak to an amazing guest, and today is no exception. Teresa and I have met, actually it was a mutual connection. I'll give a shout out to Denise Renee. That's my girl from back in the days, and she just felt like we needed to connect. She was like, you need to listen to this podcast episode she had on her podcast, and she felt like we needed to connect. I listened to the episode and I said, you're right, we do need to connect. So Teresa and I connected, and I was on her podcast, and then I invited her to be on my podcast. So that's kind of like the backstory, and also the advantage of podcasting, right? If you're a podcaster, or if you're thinking about podcasting, one of the advantages is to be able to stage swap. You know, someone comes on your podcast and then you come on their podcast. It's a part of the community of podcasters, is really allowing each other to share each other's stage. So I'm excited because I already know how amazing Teresa is from being on her podcast. So I'm excited to have her on this platform, the Women Faith Plus Business Podcast. But I also want to make sure the audience knows your official bio so they know a little bit more about you before we start this episode. So I'm going to share a little bit more about Teresa K Page. After serving the federal government, private university, and public education sectors for the past 20 years, Teresa Page is honored to lend her experience as a servant leader, I love that, towards her new assignment, which is Teresa K Page LLC. I love that. It's all about the assignments. We're always assigned to a season to doing something. She is equipped with a bachelor's and master's degree in business administration and a graduate certificate in life coaching. Teresa is excited about her forging a career as an emerging author, speaker, coach, and podcaster to help women realize their unfulfilled goals and to become the leaders they always were. Through the mediums of her books, Women's Leadership Conference, and solution-focused development services, Teresa endeavors to employ love as the ultimate success factor to renew women's leadership mindset with fresh fire and purpose. I love that fire part. Taking an open world approach, it is Teresa's vision to become a trusted resource to support the success of faith professionals and nonprofit organizations that champion women's upward mobility to influence our culture, economy, and the next generation of 21st century leaders. So excited to have Teresa K Page on the podcast. Welcome, welcome, Teresa.
Thank you so much for having me, Miss Nadine. I'm so excited to be with you and looking forward to our conversation. Awesome, awesome introduction. Thank you so much. I'm looking forward to our conversation today.
You are so welcome. And I love reading people's bio because it really helps us to understand how amazing the person is, right? On the other end of that bio. But in addition to the bio, sometimes there's things that people may not know about you that's not in that professional written bio, that would be interesting facts or interesting things about you. So I'd love for you to share with the audience what is an interesting fact or something that people don't usually know about you that you can share with us.
Well, I think that I'm pretty much a open book.
Love
I
it.
think at this particular point in my life, I feel I'm an adult adolescent, so to speak.
I feel you.
Because absolutely, because I'm looking for something totally brand new for living. Like I said, you mentioned in my bio about being able to work in some of the sectors I've had the opportunity to work in as far as education and the federal government. But I want a totally brand new life. I don't want to do anything that I've done in the past. And I don't know if Teresa K Page LLC is going to let me do it all, but it's
Mm.
definitely a start to allow a lot of my artistic self to be able to come forward. So a lot of my life I've spent mainly kind of buttoned up in that business space, but I've always had artistic flair about myself. So I think moving forward in this next season of my life is going to allow me to really kind of step out into my artistic self. And so
I
that
love
could
that.
be either writing, it could be singing. Hopefully, I'll be able to do some recording sometime, even with songwriting.
Yep.
And these are things I've always done. But so there's more to see. You just never know. You might see me on a motorcycle somewhere. I don't know.
Yeah, I love that
But this
because
is
we're
just,
so,
yes, but
yeah, I love that because we're so multi-talented and God has given us so many gifts and talents that there's so many different ways that we can apply that in our lives, right? So I love that you said, you don't know if Teresa K Page LLC will cover all of that, but there's lots of things that you can bring to the world and lots of assignments that God has for you. So I'm excited to see how that unfolds as time goes on. So, this season on the Women Faith Plus Business podcast, we're talking to women of faith in business who are podcasters. They host their own podcast. And I will have to say, I hear a lot of times people say, man, I really should have my own podcast, or I really feel led to start a podcast, but they never do, right? So, this is about really showcasing and highlighting and spotlighting those women who took that bold leap of faith and said, I'm going to create this platform that God has guided me to create, and sharing their stories, sharing their journeys, sharing their messages with the rest of the world too. So let's hear a little bit about your podcast. I'm going to read a little bit about what your podcast is all about, and then we'll ask you a couple of questions as it relates to your podcast. So, in an effort to help women renew their leadership mindset with fresh fire and purpose, the Women's Leadership Mindset series is a new innovative design to grow community and showcase how powerful women leaders and entrepreneurs serve the world through their professions and their purpose, with a goal to enhance, empower, educate, equalize, and even emancipate. I love that word. The podcast is designed to help women realize their unfulfilled dreams and re-energize the leaders they always were. So that is the goal. That's the initiative. That's the mission of the Women's Leadership Mindset Series podcast. I love that. So I'd love for you to share, Teresa, what was the inspiration? Why did you decide to kind of make sure you put your foot into the arena of podcasting and not just stay on the sidelines like a lot of people are doing. What was that inspiration to really start the Women's Leadership Mindset series?
Yes. So I would say it was about maybe about 2 years ago, 2022. I started Teresa K Page LLC in 2021. And so
Okay.
in 2022, I was really looking as far as aggressively networking, as well as, being on that voyage to start building community. Because a
Mm,
lot of people knew me from my education background and different things like that. So I'm now building a community around my organization. And so I
gotcha.
was working with a marketer at that particular time. And one of the ideas that we had was to start inviting guest bloggers to actually
Mm,
share certain things about themselves.
mhm.
And so we had a fairly good amount of women to kind of check in and to start doing that, where they were able to start talking about their business, their purposes, their motivations, all of those kind of things. And so, but they were doing that more so in a written space. So it was more so as a blog
Mm,
format. So
mhm.
I would say it was probably maybe late 2023 coming into 2024. I decided, well, you know what, why don't we start taking these conversations, these blog conversations, into a video space.
Mm,
And so that was pretty cool. I was like, wasn't sure if I had the technology to do all of
mm,
that, but I figured I would just use the teleconference space that I already had. And so that was the birth of that, to actually take what we were doing in a blog format and now having the actual conversation. And
yeah.
so initially I started out with the video and all of that, but being able to work with entrepreneurs in different continents or time zones and things like that. My video wasn't always too sexy. So, it might look good on my side, but then it looked grainy on their side, or the words didn't necessarily match. So I said, you know what? We still want to have these conversations. And so I decided to kind of take that old school NPR look, where it's
Mhm,
just that audio
mhm,
conversation. And that has worked for me thus far. And I kind
mhm,
of like that kind of old school approach. I know that we're in the
mhm.
realm of video, let's see your face, all of that kind of stuff. And I think that's awesome. Absolutely awesome. It definitely has its place. But
Mhm.
being able to have that audio conversation is almost like kind of take it and go. So you can listen to it while you're at your desk. You can listen while you're driving. You can listen to it while you're grocery shopping or while you're traveling. And that's how I want that to be able to do. So the mission never changed. It was still all about being able to spotlight women leaders, entrepreneurs, those authors, and how they serve the world with their purpose and with their business. But now we're having that face-to-face conversation.
Yeah.
And though, and even though we do have like a structured conversation as far as what the conversation will look like, I believe I'm developing my listening ears so that as I
Mm,
hear my guests speak a little bit more, I'm able to formulate new questions because I want them
mhm,
to talk or dig deeper with something that may have sparked my interest that I feel that the
mm,
audience will be able to listen to. So that's how we ended up into the Women's Leadership Mindset series podcast. Now, individuals can still do the blogs, but I'm really
mhm.
loving having this conversation. And
Yeah.
if I could just share, just really quickly, in 2024, I wrote my newest book that's called My Journey to Wholeness: Love to Success Factor. And in that particular experience, Miss Nadine, I felt like I would be able to start doing some book readings and some
Mm,
larger stores that was in my community. And I
mhm.
was basically told, you're not a big enough name. So that's what they told me,
Mm.
basically, to my face. You're not,
Right.
you're
What?
not a big enough name, even though some of the events I would totally own as far as the marketing and putting it together and all of that. So, of course, feeling some kind of way about it, I decided, you know what, I already have a platform and I'm going to build upon this platform, not just necessarily for me, but I was then going to repurpose my platform, still with the same mission, but more so behind the drive that I want to be that resource to help shine a brighter light, especially on leaders who are little known or not well known, or that they're
Mhm,
looking forward to launch a new venture So I have repurposed this particular platform to
Mm.
definitely to help support the success of other entrepreneurs. So as I'm shifting out of that space of unknown into known, this is my way of being able to give back and help others who's on the same journey as I am. So I repurposed, still same mission, but repurposed it specifically to make sure that I'm helping to shine the light and create that brand marketing opportunity for other leaders. So I'm really excited about what's to come.
Yeah, I love that. And I love that story because you walk us through the evolution, right? So it started off as a blog, and blogs are powerful long form content for individuals, but there is a little bit of lacking when it comes to conversation, right? Being able to have that engagement and that conversation. So then shifting to the blog to the video, and being able to see, interact, connect, engage in that way on video, but then realizing that, hey, the audio alone is actually a better way, just for purposes, like you said, if people may see it grainy or the visual part of it isn't the best, the audio piece, so walking through the journey is always good for people to hear and listen to, because my story is kind of more of like I started off with audio and then God put in my spirit to add video, right, and get the visual piece on it. So everyone's journey is different. Everyone's walk is different in how you walk out this whole podcast journey. So I love how it evolves from blogging to video to audio. And I love that you shared about the whole book side of things and even being rejected because of your platform not being big enough for your books. And I think a lot of us face that type of rejection, and that a lot of times is a catalyst for us to start our own thing. It's our catalyst to want to spotlight other people and give them more exposure. So those rejections are purposeful in the way that, we're able to deal with them and overcome them. It really sets us on a path of purpose and our trajectory, that God has intended for us. So it's all about really leaning into that rejection and saying, okay, what can I learn from this? How can I grow from this? What can I do next from it? So I love that you did that in this particular case. So I'd love for you to share, what was the vision? Like initially, we talked about the evolution of it, and I know you said the mission has really been the same, but did you have like a vision for the podcast, like what you thought it would be or could be, or has God planted something in your spirit, bigger for the podcast? I'd love to hear a little bit more about your vision for the podcast.
Yes, so my vision, I would say moving forward, especially now that I have adjusted my view as far as being able to use this particular platform to be able to spotlight some of those unknown or little known leaders, whether they are launching a new venture or they just want to be able to revive late demand on an existing venture. I foresee for myself that I really want this to be bigger, but not necessarily bigger for the sake of clicks and likes or anything like
Mm-hmm.
that. I really wanted to focus in on what it is designed for, which is not just to introduce other leaders as far as to my audience, but I want to be able to help them to grow and to scale their businesses. That's
Mm-hmm.
really at the gist of it, not that I'm just introducing and we're just having this conversation. It
Yeah.
really is designed for them to talk specifically about them, the motivation for their business, and also to talk about their business specifically and what they offer and who they serve, what community that they serve. And the
Yeah.
goal is to be able to create that lead magnet, whatever
Mm-hmm.
that complementary gift it is that they're looking to, that lead magnet is what's going to possibly open the doors for others, potential consumers, to kind of then come in and to know them directly. So I foresee this to continue on that trajectory. But more so the way I've done things differently, especially since I've determined that I wanted to repurpose this particular platform to spotlight those who may not have the big name. It has allowed other people to come in so much closer. So what I've done then was
Mm-hmm.
starting to connect with women that I knew who were over certain networks, or they had particular organizations that also served women who were trying to get a particular footing, either in entrepreneurship or as writers or other things like that. And so connecting with some of those leaders who are over organizations or already have a particular group of individuals that they work with working with them directly and presenting myself as that resource. That here's what I want to do, that I want to be able to help them to get to wherever it is that they want to, and connecting with leaders that have somewhat where we are kind of aligned as far as in our purpose and in our mission. So
Yeah.
what that has done, Miss Nadine, is that it has not only has it allowed me to start having meetings with different women over organizations or networks, but then they want to know, well, Teresa, can I be the first partaker? Can I do it? Can I do it first?
Right.
And that has allowed me to let them to be the first partaker so that their organization or their networks or their down networks can actually understand that this is a trusting environment. It is exactly what it says it is. And it
Yep.
allows me to then provide some type of marketing piece, whether it's a letter or it's a flyer or something, just inviting those within their network to be a part of, to use my platform, my as a megaphone to kind of jumpstart what they're doing with their business. So that's what I see. So in the long run, I see it working more so that I will continue to be that resource for organizations to create that brand marketing tool for them. And I also see that eventually I hope I'll get to the place where I can have sponsors. I don't necessarily want advertisers, but that there are sponsors to help me to make this bigger and even better, as so we can make sure that we're providing a better product as we move along. So that's the
Yeah.
vision overall.
I love that. And that vision is really clear. As you were speaking, I was really feeling like it was in three different areas. The vision is community, making sure that you started with community, you're building on community. Then there's conversation, right? On your podcast, the conversations that you're having with these leaders and the powerful influence that they have with what they're sharing in that conversation, right? So that part. And then collaboration, right? Connection, being able to connect individuals so they can collaborate and grow. So really having that vision of community, conversation, connections, and collaborations is really that big vision picture that I'm hearing from you that you offer with your platform. So I think for me, that's really great because that shows your heart and your ability to want to serve from a servant leadership point of view. My question to you is, did you ever feel like also showcasing yourself as far as being like an expert or a coach or a mentor? Because sometimes people do the interview styles and then the solo episodes. So have you positioned yourself in that way too? And if not, why not?
Yes, so I have done it at least maybe two or three times where I am just doing something solo. I feel that I need to do that even the more. And so as I move forward in 2025, you'll start hearing more from me just as a singular voice. So I can continue to do that positioning as far as being a thought leader or people understanding what is really the gist of my heart and as well as the gist of my business. And oftentimes I have to remember that the podcast can take a lot of time, but it is not the primary focus of my business. It's one of the arms within the organization. And I think what within the last week or two, I've been given a lot of energy for podcasting, but I'm not a podcaster. It just so happened to be a thing that I do. One of the slash dash, what is one of my slashes or one of my dashes, but it's not the primary focus of what I do. It is a tool.
Yep.
But what has helped me, and maybe in the last week or so, I attended a podcasting summit last week, and the facilitator of the organization, he helped me to understand, what is it that you're trying to do? Are you trying to be a podcaster, or are you really focusing in on your work as an author and a speaker and all of that? And so he helped me kind of, I wasn't too far offline, but he definitely helped me to kind of put my focus back on the main thing. As Coach Prime would say, keep the main thing the main thing. And the main thing
Exactly.
really is my books. It really is my conferences. So I would say the goal for me is that I still want to maintain the mission of what I'm doing with the podcast, being able to support other women, but also taking advantages of opportunities like this, being a podcast guest on other platforms is also going to kind of bring a couple of eyes towards the main thing, which is, the overall reason why Teresa K Page LLC is in business. And that is as an author and coach, and still being able to employ love as our ultimate success factor to help renew women's leadership mindset with fresh fire and purpose. So yeah, I'm going to be doing more of that and really talking more about why I'm here still in business.
I love that. So many good points that I want to take away. And I think one of the key things that you mentioned is keeping the main thing, right? Because there is a difference. Like I say, I'm interviewing podcasters, but technically there is a difference between a podcaster and a host of a podcast, right? And you kind of
Yes.
highlighted that in what you mentioned. So we should probably talk a little bit about it. Because I remember a while ago we did I can't remember what it was. I think it was a challenge about blogging. And one of the things we mentioned about blogging is there's a difference between a blogger and using blogging as a strategy for your marketing. So when you mentioned podcaster versus hosting a podcast, it's like, same thing, right? You're not here as a woman of faith in business to be, unless you are a podcaster, right? Where you get all of your revenue and effort and time and energies in this podcasting lane, but you're actually here as a podcast host and using it as an opportunity for a marketing strategy for people to get more awareness, to have more exposure, those kind of things. So it's a completely different mindset. It's a completely different business model. It's a completely different way of operating by being a podcaster versus being a podcast host. So I appreciate you bringing up that in our conversation, Teresa, because that's very true. And I love that your planning and the overall vision is to spotlight a little bit more of the work that you do in the world. Because as I said, I know you have a servant heart and you do an amazing job of spotlighting other people. And even the way that, because I have been on your podcast, I know the behind the scenes things that you do and what you create for the people that come on your show, and making sure that's highlighted in the email and on YouTube and all the different places. You're really excellent at the way that you do it as a podcast host. But I'm also loving that you're also giving yourself more shine in that platform by allowing people to truly understand how you help. And your theme of love is so important. And maybe we should lean into that a little bit more too, because that's something that a lot of people don't really talk about, especially in this world where it's so divisive. You know, we came out of a divisive political season, and just the atmosphere in general tends to be divisive. I almost feel like saying all we need is love, like that song, right? All we need is love. So I love that
Absolutely.
your messaging is built on the love, right, that we need to have for each other and the love for our fellow man. So tell us a little bit more about that, why that's such an important theme for you, why that's such an important part of your message, that whole love aspect.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Well, like I said, that I've had an extensive career in the public higher education as well as in the federal government space. But I always had a desire to be an entrepreneur. That was been something entrepreneurial heart, that I've always had for myself. But the difference is that I didn't have a particular message. Like, what is the message? Like, if I am an entrepreneur, and there's been things I've tried in the past, whether it was doing hair or other things that I thought that I could do because I was good at, but what am I actually called to do? So that was something I didn't have an answer to. So if I am going to be an entrepreneur, what is going to be my work? So I would say it was about maybe in 2015. I actually attended this Women's History Month event in downtown Atlanta. And this is pretty much my story where I was exposed to my purpose, basically. And so the room was filled with all kinds of women, different kind of backgrounds, different kind of continents, different kinds of industry. And we were there specifically to talk about women in business. But there was a young lady that stood up and she asked a question. And she said, with all of the amazing things that women can do, there still feels like there is a force that's holding us back. What is it? And she asked that question. And of course, it's always the things about imposter syndrome or negative self-talk or low self-esteem. Some of the things, all of the things that we have been saying over the years. And during that time, I was actually publishing my very first book, My Journey to Wholeness, The Sojourn Continues. And these were some of the things that I talked about, some of the things that I mentioned in my book about love, about healing, about understanding purpose and all of that. And that in the midst of that conversation, that's where my purpose hit me that, whoa, this is what you're made for, is to help take the lid off of women's capacity. And I thought with the book that I had at the moment, I was like, well, I'm publishing the book. There's already certain things I know how to do. I was the event planner at the time, even though I was working in the higher education space. And I said, I have everything I need. Let's hit it. Let's get it. And it was one of those things where the Lord introduced me to my purpose, but I started jumping to do things. He never said go. He never said, go ahead, daughter, you start this today. But in my overzealousness, I kind of jumped and started, and way before he told me to jumpstart. But I also believe that my overzealousness was part of the journey. It was actually part of the plan. And so for the next year, between 2015 and 2016, I was taking all of my resources and putting it towards this new purpose that I was so excited about. And by the end of 16, I lost everything, Miss Nadine. I mean, everything. Everything. When I say I lost everything, I lost everything. But in my mind, it was a loss, but it was actually maybe the beginning of the journey of being developed for the purpose that I am now living, that Teresa K Page LLC now is. And so what I learned in that time of development and purpose development was, it brought me back to that question. What is it that might be holding women back from being everything that we're supposed to be? And understanding my initial purpose of being able to help women take the lid off of their capacity. What was the answer to that? And what I found that the answer to that was love, was absolutely love. And so it wasn't so much of the things that was holding us back, even though there's always been things that has held women back throughout the years. But it was that love was the answer to help us to become everything that we are supposed to be. And I guess you say, well, Teresa, well, love is so broad and all of that. Traditionally, what we use love for is mainly for an emotional space, which is, it's wonderful there, it's soft there, it's cuddly there, it's sweet there. But the thing of it is that from a faith perspective, if we ever bring our mind back to the idea that God is love, and to understand that we use that as children, Sunday school, all of that. But it's more than that. If we understand that God is all powerful, we know that He's all present, He is all creative, He is all benevolent, and He is all present at all times. And so everything that God can do, love can do. So then the idea comes then how do we use love in a different space? And more so, how can we use love as a skill set and as a competency that we can apply to every one of our intense situations? And there's a way to do that. So it's called opening up love and reimagining what love can really do for us, and specifically mainly in the workspace. How does love then become a game changer for us in the workspace? And that is what I've learned, that love is that game changer that will help us to be more powerful in business, that will help us to be more present for our stakeholders, that will help us to be creative, innovative in what we create as far as our goods and our services. And it helps us to be benevolent in all of our whatever we do with our community service and those kind of things. So love really is that game changer that gives us a competitive edge, whether we know it or not. And so that is the mission of Teresa K Page LLC, is to really, let's break it down. How can we use love more, take it out of that emotional space and really be able to use it in that in our business models to make sure that we're being effective for the domains that we have influence over. So that's really the work.
Yeah. Ooh, I just love that so much. So many things that you shared about it. First, that whole take the lid off of your capacity is like powerful. I don't know if that's a trademark thing or if that just really stood out for me because sometimes we can feel like this is only, it's like ceilings, right? You feel like you can only go so far, but with God, we serve an unlimited God. So why do we have that ceiling? Why do we have that lid? Take the lid off of your capacity. You can do so much more with God, right? With God, all things are possible. So that just sparked something in my spirit when you said that. Take the lid off your capacity. And I also love the fact that you said a lot of times we think of love in that emotional space, right? We just had Valentine's Day, at least at the time of this recording last week, and it's all about couples and love. But love is so much bigger than that. And then there's nothing wrong with that. Don't get me wrong. Love is a good thing in the emotional space and relationship space too. But how are we talking about love in the workplace? How are we talking about love in the work that we do and fully understanding what love is, which is God. God is love, and the many characteristics of God that also define the characteristics of love. And that's why love is so important in all areas of our lives, not just in the emotional and relationship space. So wow, that is a super powerful message that God has given you to steward. So I'm happy that He gave that message to you. And I also love how you shared, I'm all about the journey and the evolution, how it evolved to that. You weren't crystal clear, right? A lot of us were not necessarily crystal clear, but you keep moving forward and God reveals, through going through the conference and hearing that question the woman had. And, there's a whole process that we have to go through in order to get that clarity. And then it hits us. It hits us in the spiritual realm. It hits us in our heart. It hits us like, this is the message. Oh, this is the thing, right? That I'm supposed to be stewarding or managing for God. So I love that you got clarity as you move forward because the word says He'll order your steps, right? He'll order your steps. So you just have to take one step at a time and try not to run too far ahead, like you said. So I love that. And I also love that you shared that you've always had an entrepreneurial spirit because since, hosting this podcast, I always find people fall in two buckets. They either fall into entrepreneurship and never consider themselves an entrepreneur at all, but just happen to fall into it, or they knew that there was an entrepreneur. They had that entrepreneurial spirit. So to know that we're in the same bucket, I've had an entrepreneurial spirit from a very young age too. So I feel like God has put us on this journey and put this spirit in us for a reason. So I love that. So awesome. So amazing. So I'd love for you to share, Teresa, what would you say would be, and I think I may know the answer to this, but maybe not, the one thing that you want listeners to get from your podcast? If there was one particular word or maybe even a phrase that you would love, no matter what episode they listen to, whether they listen to one episode or they listen to several, that main thing that you want them to walk away with after listening to your podcast, what would be that one word if this Holy Spirit drops a word in your spirit or a phrase that you really want people to take away after listening to your podcast?
Yes, well, I think one of the questions that I always ask is that I ask every listener, and I always
Mm,
bring them back to what I believe about love, which is what I just shared a few minutes ago, that I
mm-hmm.
believe that love is that game changer,
Yep,
that helps us to be powerful in leadership, to help us to
yep,
be fully present for our teams and our stakeholders,
yep.
innovative in business, as well as knowledgeable in our industry trends, as well as being benevolent in our community service. So the goal is, but then the following question, I want to know, how has love shaped those individuals or my featured guests as a leader? And how
Mm,
has love played a part in their particular life? And
mm-hmm.
so that is what, and them being able to articulate that in so many different ways, because the answers are never the same. And it
Exactly.
definitely proves how diverse love really is, because the way I might need love to show up for me and the way love might shape me and inform me
Mm-hmm.
as a leader may not be the way that love shows up for you, Miss Nadine, and
Mm-hmm.
informs and shapes you as a leader. And how you might need love today may not be how you might need love for tomorrow or even next week. And I want people to be able to take away with that, that love is not just an emotion, but love
Mhm.
is that ultimate success factor to ensure that we are successful in all of our situations, and that love can be applicable to all of our situations. It's beautiful for all of our situations. So I would say that is the key word, is to understand that love is our ultimate success factor. And regardless of what industry or what roles that we might be called to, that love can be the helm of whatever it is, whatever work it is that we are called to do. That if we use love as the helm, we will
Mm.
definitely have all of the authority we need. We'll have all of the creativity that we need. We'll have all of the benevolence that we need. We'll have all of the awareness that we need in order to be able to move forward successfully. To really
Mm.
use love really as a tool. It is the catalyst to ensure our everyday success, regardless of what the situation is. So love, that's it. That's what I want people to take away. And that love is that tool, and especially for those who are entrepreneurs, it's definitely that tool that correlates with our leadership. And so
Yeah.
that's what I want
Yeah.
people to take away, regardless of which episode that they listen to. And I
Mhm.
love the way that my featured guests answer it, because there's been
Mhm.
no two answers that has been the same. So it's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I kind of knew because of what we were talking about before, that probably was going to be what you wanted people to take away. But I think that's a powerful thing, as a host of a podcast, to have that staple question, right? Because that staple question that no matter what episode, someone could just listen to one episode and that's it. Or someone could binge watch and listen to 10 episodes. That staple one question that you're going to ask every single guest, and whatever their response is, like you said, may differ, but that's a key takeaway for that individual when they listen to that podcast episode, or they listen to your podcast in general. So I love, number one, having staple questions and key questions that you ask every single guest. I think that's a great tip for those of us out here that's listening, that are considering podcasting, or if you have a podcast, have that staple question, have that one question that no matter what episode somebody listens to, they're going to walk away with the answer to that one question. I think it's key. And I love that question that you ask, and to know that love is actually the ultimate success factor for us as business owners, entrepreneurs. I love that. So that I will have to say for sure. So this has been a great conversation. Really have enjoyed it. What's the best way for people to actually listen to your podcast if they want to listen and learn a little bit more about the podcast? What's the best avenue for them to be able to listen to the podcast?
Well, the podcast lives on YouTube as well as on Spotify, so they could definitely connect with Teresa K Page. They'll actually find me as Teresa K Page, MBA, on both YouTube as well as on Spotify. If you can't find it there, no worries. You could also go to my website, teresakpage.squarespace.com, and you'll definitely see a whole section for the Women's Leadership Mindset series. So there's no way that you can't find it. So either by my website, YouTube, as well as Spotify.
Yeah,
That's the great way to be able to connect.
and we'll definitely put the links in this episode page notes. So the links to the podcast will be on there. Now, what is the best way for people to connect with you if they want to just learn a little bit more about you, the work that you do in the world, how you serve? Tell us a little bit about what you do, how you serve, and then the best way for people to connect with you.
Absolutely. Listening audience, ladies and gentlemen, that's the best way to connect with me. Again, is with my website, teresakpage.squarespace.com. There is where you would learn more about my mission, which is to employ love as
Mhm.
that ultimate success factor to help women to renew their leadership mindset with fresh fire and purpose. They'll be able to find out how we do that. So we do that with the Love the Success Factor Women's Leadership Conference that I'm now structuring as a private event for organizations for groups of 5 or more. They're also able to learn about my group coaching retreats, and that's how we are able to help organizations to reach their ultimate goals for their organization. And they'll also be able to find out more about my motivational speaking, my book series, which is the My Journey to Wholeness book series, and of course, the Women's Leadership Mindset series podcast. They'll be able to find out all of that great information. So
Yeah.
they'll be able to, on that same website, teresakpage.squarespace.com, they're able to connect with me via email. They're able to schedule a meeting with me. They're also able to connect with me on social media, which is LinkedIn, YouTube, and Spotify, as well as Goodreads. They can find me there as well. So all of those things are in one good place. So I look forward to opening that door. Let's schedule a meeting with Teresa and let's begin a great conversation.
Yes, definitely reach out to Teresa, hit her up on her website, whether it's for her conference, whether it's her podcast, whether it's her retreats, as she mentioned. Check her out on her website and definitely look into the amazing work that she's doing in the world. So thank you so much for being on the Women Faith Plus Business podcast. Are you a woman of faith in business who is aspiring to start a podcast? Or maybe you have a podcast and you want to rebrand or relaunch your podcast? I have good news for you. Announcing and introducing She Elevates Media. She Elevates Media is a collective and a collaboration project and your marketing team to launch your podcast. We will assist you from beginning to end in launching your God-given message in the marketplace in the form of a podcast. We help you plan the podcast, we help you publish and produce the podcast, and we also help you promote the podcast. So this is something that is new to the marketplace, and I am one of the individuals as a part of the collective of your marketing team. So I encourage you to go to sheelevatesmedia.com to learn more about how we can partner with you to launch your podcast, to rebrand your podcast, or to relaunch your podcast as we walk you through the path to profiting in your podcast, where we plan, we publish, we produce, and we promote your podcast. Learn more at sheelevatesmedia.com. Thank you for listening to the Women Faith Plus Business podcast. I hope this episode has been insightful and inspiring and has offered you an opportunity to take action to transform your life and your business. Wherever you are listening, be sure to rate and review the podcast and also subscribe to get the next episode right in your inbox by going to womenfaithandbusiness.com to join our email list.